Just
I tripped and dropped in the fire. Oh, darn.
All right, we're loading up on YouTube here. There we go. There we go. Okay, we're live there. So let's go ahead and start the webinar. And let some folks start to file in. Well, welcome to another QB Power Hour. Hi, Michelle. You look dashing in your red shirt. Someone's happy.
Yeah, let's say it. It's a wonderful Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And I am still feeling the love from the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. What a nail biter, though. Was that game not like, oh my goodness?
I had my lucky candle be lit, and wouldn't you know it, a gust of wind came by in the fourth quarter and blew it out.
Thank goodness for that gust of wind. We needed all the help we could get. I'll tell you, that game was so close and it was so stressful all the way till the final second clicked off the clock. I could not breathe. It was so stressful. So, and yes, I am sad to be missing the big parade tomorrow, Karen. I didn't get to go to the big game in person, and I don't get to go to the big parade, but I am still relishing in the victory. And doesn't Dan look great in red, everybody? He's in such a good color on him.
living in an RV, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have too many red clothes. And that was our friendly wager that Michelle and I had, since I'm from Philadelphia, was rooting for the Eagles, and he's of course in Kansas City area. Whoever won, the loser would have to wear the other team's colors. So I had to look for, the only thing I had was this burgundy or maroon shirt, and then I have my Cardinals jersey, which is red. So we'll just pretend it's a Kansas City jersey from the numbers up. But
yeah,
congratulations to the Chiefs. That was just amazing. Even to be on the losing side of that, it was just amazing to watch.
It was an amazing game. I mean, it could have went either way. That's what's so scary about it, is those two teams were so evenly matched. It was a really, really great game. So, yep. But I'm very glad to see you in red today. And it's a perfect day to be in red, since it is Valentine's Day. And we are sharing the love today, talking about what we love about QuickBooks today. So we are very glad to have you all joining us today. And so let's go ahead and get
look at that.
Content. Oh my goodness, we got more Chiefs here. So anyway, I am Michelle Wong, owner of Wong for Success. Very glad to have you all joining us today. Author of several different books. You can check them out on Facebook. And yes, I am a longtime longtime Chiefs fan. So Haley's giving thumbs down to the Chiefs. We have been season ticket holders in our family for 47, 48 years. So we have been through thick and thin with them. So we are relishing in the good times while they last. So I am enjoying it. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Dan DeLong, owner of Danwith. Worked over at Intuit for nearly 18 years, co-hosting today, as well as the workshop Wednesdays over at schoolbookkeeping.com, and tech editor of the QBO for Dummies series of books. A little bit about the details about the QB Power Hour. It's every other Tuesday at 12 Eastern. Our upcoming webinars are on our website, so if you want to go and check those out. The next one that we're having, our friends at Ignition are coming on to talk about the state of engagement. So it's a really, really hot topic there, how engagement, what the status of engagement is. And you can check out our website there for upcoming events, not just with the Power Hour, but other webinar series as well. If you do need the PDFs of the slides, the recordings, the podcasts, you can always go to qbpowerhour.com/resources. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have specific questions about what it is that we're talking about today, please put them in the Q&A. The Q&A really helps us to follow up if there is need for that. We only have an hour. If it's something that might take a little longer than the time that we have allotted here today, we can follow up a lot easier if you put the questions in the Q&A. If you have just comments and things like that, please put those in the chat, like "Go Chiefs" or "Boo Chiefs," whichever side of the fence you're on the Chiefs side of things. Please put those in the chat. But questions, please put in the Q&A section. And then, of course, we have the links there for the handouts and also in the webinar archive as well. So our agenda today is all about sharing the love. QuickBooks and Intuit is something that I think a lot of accountants and bookkeepers love to hate, right? It's kind of like when you have to do business with Amazon or Facebook. I mean, those are some of those juggernaut, types of entities that you kind of have to deal with sometimes, and we tend to focus on some of the things that we hate about what it is that they're doing, especially the accounting community over the past couple of years. But because it's Valentine's Day, we wanted to talk about the things that we love about QuickBooks today. What was Michelle, what was your first introduction to QuickBooks? How far back was it? I mean, I don't want to like.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Make me feel really old, but it's fine. I'm so happy this week. Nothing can make me. Yeah. But actually, I started using QuickBooks in the mid 90s, and I started teaching QuickBooks in the mid to late 90s. So I started teaching it about 97 or 8. I started teaching QuickBooks at the local SBDC. So I've been using QuickBooks Desktop for a really long time. But when it came to QuickBooks Online, I didn't like the first QuickBooks Online. And actually, a lot of people don't realize QBO has actually been around since like early 2000. And I was not an early adopter of QBO. I didn't like it until Harmony came around. And Dan, you might remember when that was. It was a few years after Harmony came around
it was like
that I started looking at it.
They started to make the push towards harmonizing, and they called it Harmony because they were doing an overhaul of every product, and they wanted all of the products to be consistent. So they wanted to harmonize, and that was the kind of the code name that they gave for the rebranding or the revisualization of QuickBooks Online. They moved things from the little tabs on the top over to the sidebar, the navigator bar that we all know and love today, right? Of course, my interaction with, let me just launch this poll here. This is actually a two-parter. What version of QuickBooks do you use to support your clients? But also, along that vein, how long have you been using QuickBooks? Is it less than a year, or 1 to 3 years, or are you in the Michelle Long Club of the better part of your adult life?
That's right. Thank you, Dan. And I just wanted to address one of the questions here. Somebody was saying something about QuickBooks QBO, like is not reliable or not responsive or what. One of the things I hear people say a lot with QBO is that it's slow. And one of the things that I found is usually it's not QBO that's slow, because like when we do demos or training or whatever, you can see, we don't see the little spinny thing waiting on it or whatever. So if you go to speedtest.org, check your download and upload speeds, because a lot of times it's actually your internet. And like one time I had to keep calling our ISP, our internet service provider. I had to keep calling them and having them come back out. And they eventually had to dig up the lines in the box that was behind our house in our neighborhood, because it was degraded from water damage. Once they dug that box up and replaced those lines, because they had given me a new box in the house and a new router and a new this and a new that, they finally dug up the box and replaced those lines in the yard. Then I had blazing fast internet speeds like I was supposed to have. So do the speed test and check to see if you're getting the speeds that you're supposed to be having. Also use a separate browser with no those add-ins,
extensions. Yeah.
Thank you. Extension. Use a separate browser and clear your cache and cookies regularly. Sorry, Dan.
No, that's all those are good points, because and we'll talk about that a little bit. As what one of the things that I love about it is the whole QuickBooks Online infrastructure when it comes to that, and we'll talk about desktop too. I mean, we're not going to leave desktop out in the cold here. but we'll that's one of the things that we'll talk about, like when we talk about the differences between the two different platforms. But just the fact that there is nothing to download, install, save, store, I mean that, but it does put, to your point, it puts everything on a single point of failure. If you don't have internet, you don't have your QuickBooks, right? So there's that aspect of it. But now that everything's going to subscriptions on the desktop side of things, you also need an active internet connection for that too. So um, you don't need the blazing hot speeds like you do when you're actually in it, but it does need to go out and verify your subscription is active. So let me go ahead and end the poll. We'll kind of share our results here. So most folks are on QuickBooks Online, and of course desktop as well. But look at that, 47%, 5 to 10 years with QuickBooks, and 41 is over 10 years. So we won't say how many years that is, but we'll just leave it at that. If you're all right. So I came up with this analogy when I worked it into it about QuickBooks Online versus desktop, and I think the way it resonated with me, it was that QuickBooks Online is a cat and QuickBooks Desktop is a dog, right? And if you're a dog person, you really don't like cats. If you're a cat person, you really don't like dogs. But QuickBooks Desktop, being a dog, you can teach it things. You can you can teach it new tricks. You can get it to fetch. You can get it to do the things that you want it to do. Whereas QuickBooks Online is being a cat. A cat just kind of does what it wants, right? It kind of sits there and rubs at your legs and meows at you and then begs you to pick it up. And as soon as you pick it up, oh no, it scratched you. So, or it, puts its belly up for a belly rub and immediately claws at you when you dare touch it. But that's kind of the thing that I saw in the differences between the two platforms. And there are people who are agnostic, right? Like they love dogs and cats, right? So it really just comes to personal preference. But also, the client itself, right? The client is coming with you with they already have a subscription or with one of those platforms. It becomes to that. So I put a link here where we talk on our workshop Wednesday about the difference a little bit more in detail. If you want to check it out, you certainly can. But the thing that I love the most about QuickBooks is QuickBooks Payments. It has come a long way from what it used to be. There used to be this spider web of different payment options, like I don't know if you remember the Intuit Payment Network and Go Payment and those types of things. But now it's all, since I think it was 2015, they combined all of the QuickBooks payment services under one roof, and that you have one payment option or one quick way to accept payments. And some of the highlights there is you email an invoice and the customer can pay it, or you can set up recurring payments. And there's a new option with invoices called auto pay that we'll show a little demonstration, which I just realized I am not sharing my computer sound, which I just changed. You can take all sorts of payment options. They have a card reader that's a new card reader that you can take Apple Pay and Google Pay and Samsung Pay and PayPal and all the different payment options. Payment links is another function within QuickBooks Payments where you can send someone a link, or a lot of things that people were kind of complaining about with payments is that I couldn't put a way to accept a payment on my website, right? With payment links, you can do that now. And in the deposit account, which is kind of a mixed reviews, especially from the accounting industry about the QuickBooks checking account, but it is an interest-bearing deposit account. You can deposit your funds in there, put it in an envelope, and there's an interest. It's a relatively high interest compared to other savings accounts. And then there's now pre-funding options You may not see it today. It is kind of rolling out, across, your clients, but there's a way to get funded up front. And when you're using all this stuff together, you can avoid some of those 1% transaction fees, those types of things with the pre-funding. And oh, by the way, it does integrate, and it's the only one that really integrates with QuickBooks, right? So that's one of the advantages of using completely QuickBooks branded services is the integration. And thing that I love about QuickBooks Payments is that once you send the invoice or once you send the payment request, you're pretty much done with your bookkeeping because everything else happens automatically after that. The customer pays, the payment gets recorded into your QuickBooks. The deposit of grouping the deposits together is done for you, and the fees are calculated, and now it actually automatically reconciles that deposit. So it's a time savings. Even though there's fees, and those fees are relatively competitive to other payment options, but the savings of time is the huge win for me. What do you think?
Yeah, Dan, I just was going to just reiterate. I mean, what you just said is so key and huge for so many clients. What you just talked about, that integration and the time savings. Think about that for landlords that have 50 properties and they can set this up for their tenants to pay online, or a fitness center and the membership dues for their people, or a daycare facility, or any of these places where they have the recurring, amounts. They can automate this in a variety of ways. They can set it up to automatically hit their accounts, or let the tenants do the auto payments themselves. There's a variety of ways that you can set it up with this. So that time savings and that integration is huge for the clients, but it's also huge for us. I mean, I know a lot of us have spent time with clients that have used a merchant service that's not integrated, and we have to run it through a clearing account, trying to figure it out because it's not integrated, and fees and all this. And I mean, so I agree with you. This is just huge for both the clients and us, and the time savings. And I love it as well. So lots of love here. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and then I see some of the comments and the chats floating by. I mean, nothing's 100% that's always going to work. And sometimes it doesn't match your invoices and payments correctly, but it does do a lot better than most when it comes to that. I mean, you're going to have issues with any payment provider, whatever that happens to be. That's why they have chat support, or whatever kind of support they have, and those types of things. And somebody asked a question about can you send the payment link to multiple people? And actually, it's a good segue for the next slide, because we'll talk. We'll show a little a video about payment links in and of itself, because I think it's a relatively new function, and it makes sense to be aware of what that function is capable of. So that if your clients are using it, they can take advantage of that. But I do have some links here. There was a prior QB Power Hour where we just did focus specifically on QuickBooks Payments, both on the desktop and the online side. And we've created at School of Bookkeeping QBO payment tutorials, which we'll talk. Really, it's what we want to do is have a one-stop shop for all of the things dealing with QuickBooks Payments there. So you can certainly check that out there as well. All right, so let's talk about these payment links. We'll show this little video here, and then come back and talk about it.
From the QuickBooks team. Payment links allow you to create and share a link with your customers to collect their payment. They work once and will automatically expire after your customer pays you. A payment link is great for getting paid for a single product or service from a single customer when you expect them to pay you within a day or two. However, if you need to create an invoice to give your customer more time to pay, Then you should add an online payment option to your invoice instead. Here's a link to a separate video that will show you how. To create a payment link, select Payment Links. Note your navigation may look like this. If you already have a QuickBooks Payments account, select Create My Link to make your first link. If you don't have a payments account, you can sign up for one here by selecting Get Started. There's also a link to a video to show you how at the end of this one. You can customize your payment link URL by entering your business name if you'd like. This step is optional. Next, enter the amount you want your customer to pay and a description of what they're paying for. Note that your customer will see this description. Select a customer name from the drop-down or add in a new customer. Then, add the customer email that you want to send the link to. Choose how you want your customer to pay you. Once everything looks good, select Send Payment Link to send this payment link to your customer via email. Now you have the option to copy your link, to send it through an alternate email, or to text message if you prefer. Or you can display your payment link as a QR code to allow customers to scan it and pay right in front of you. When your customer selects your payment link, they'll go to a page where they can pay you. From here, they can choose their preferred method of payment. And don't worry, they don't need to have a QuickBooks account to pay. Once they pay you, you'll receive a confirmation email. Select Payment Links to view the status of your links, such as viewed, sent, paid, and deposited. You can also see if any errors have occurred, or if customers have run into problems using your links. You could send reminders, view link details, and edit your link if it hasn't been viewed by a customer yet. If your customer has paid using the link, you'll be able to view the sales receipt created for that transaction. Now you're ready to get paid quickly, anytime, anywhere, by creating a payment link.
So, one of the things that I saw, floating around in the chat was, can we use payment links for multiple customers? And there is an option for that, to be able to not choose a specific customer, just to create a generic payment link, and that allows you then to put it on your website. But it's going to be for the same amount, right? So if it's like a donation, a suggested donation or something like that, that's a good use for payment links like that. And then you can put it up on the website, and then people pay. Or if it's for a set fee of services that you might offer, you could put a payment link for that. And then when it comes down, then it will either allow you to create a sales receipt from that, or apply it to an invoice that might be open as well. Let's see. There was a lot of people are asking about deferring the fees. Michelle, do you have a concept or a thought about absorbing the fees?
I am not up to date on the fees or things like that, but my thoughts are, when it comes to, accepting credit cards and fees and things, if this kind of stuff makes your life or your clients' life easier, and you get paid as opposed to chasing down the fees and things like that, build this into your pricing. I mean, these types of fees, people expect to pay with their credit cards and pay online these days. So build the fees into your pricing. And, it's a cost of doing business these days.
Yeah, we both Michelle and I went through weddings recently, not to each other, but to our children.
With our kids.
And that was one of the common things that vendors that we ran into. I don't know about you, is that they said, if you use a credit card, there's a 3% convenience fee, blah blah blah. And that was, to me, that was just kind of like a turnoff, right? Like, it was like, oh geez, come on. I mean, I need my points, or who carries that much cash, or where is my checkbook? I don't even know. But I mean, those types of things that in that regard. And then of course there's the legality about that. Are you in a state that allows that to happen? As far as passing along those fees to your client. For me, and I think I'm in the same boat as you, Michelle, is that to me it's the cost of doing business. And then somebody mentioned about the funding time. It takes five days to get your funds. It's not supposed to, right? It's ACH takes a little longer. To basically what happens is when you do those when you set up your payments account, first deposits need to be actually monitored through the process and make sure that things are happening the way they're supposed to happen. And that takes a little longer. Like your first deposit is usually delayed, but once there is a history of charges and deposits, it makes they're supposed to change. The credit cards get changed to the next day, and an ACH will eventually, but it takes about 5 days or so to get that history for credit cards, and then it takes about 4 weeks or so for ACH. So the funding delay should be next business day. And one of the things that you have with the QuickBooks checking account is if you do the instant depositing to the QuickBooks checking, that 1% fee of instant access, which is usually like 30 minutes or something where you have access to that, is waived. So you can actually have your funds within 30 minutes. If everything is all aligned properly and set up properly, you should be able to have your funds within 30 minutes if you use that.
Yeah.
And then Jeff, go ahead.
Well, no, you can go ahead. I was just going to say, Dan, I was going to say one more thing is when it comes to fees, we can't overlook the intangible cost of the time and the time savings from the integration.
This is Mark from the QuickBooks team. Payment links allow you to...
Trying to go to the next slide.
No, yeah, I was going to say we can spend a lot of time on this because it is great and we love it. But, just you can't put a total cost on that intangible time savings. And that is worth quite a bit, actually. So,
yeah. Time is money, as they say. So there's another payment option called auto pay. It's different than creating a sales receipt that's recurring that charges the customer automatically. It's actually done through Invoices. So I wanted to show the little video about that.
This is Mark from the QuickBooks team. If you have a customer you need to invoice every week, month, or year, you can set up a recurring invoice in QuickBooks to save time. Let's go over how to set one up and how to enable auto pay so your customers will have the option to automatically pay your recurring invoices. To start, go to New and Invoice. To make your invoice recurring, select Create Recurring Invoice under Invoice Date. Name your recurring invoice series. Then, from the Type drop-down, select Scheduled for QuickBooks to automatically create invoices in this series. If you want to create a template that's saved with partial or complete data and without a schedule, select Unscheduled. If you only want QuickBooks to remind you to create your invoice, select Reminder. We'll select Scheduled for this example. If you want, you can decide how far in advance you want QuickBooks to create the invoice before it sends it so you can review it. Next, select Automatically Send Emails. Note that you also have the option for QuickBooks to include any unbilled charges for your customer in your recurring invoice. Under Interval, tell QuickBooks how often to send this invoice out. In our example, QuickBooks will send our invoice on the 1st of the month starting next month. You can add an end date if you want as well. Fill in the rest of your invoice details. If you need help on filling an invoice, there's a link to a video to show you how at the end of this one. To enable AutoPay, you'll need a QuickBooks Payments account, but you can set up an account here if you don't have one. If you have a QuickBooks Payments account, you'll just need to select the payment methods you want to accept on these invoices. AutoPay works for both card and ACH transactions. Once everything looks good, select Save Template. When your customer receives your invoice via email, they can set up AutoPay by selecting Review and Pay, then Set up AutoPay. They can cancel this anytime. To manage individual invoices in a recurring series, select Sales and then the Invoices tab. All your recurring invoices have this symbol next to them. Select an invoice to see details on the invoice activity or to edit the invoice. For those set to be auto-paid, you'll see its auto-pay scheduled status. If you need to manage your recurring invoice series, select Settings and then Recurring Transactions. Choose the invoice series you want to change and select Edit. That's it. Now you can save time sending invoices and getting paid with recurring invoices.
So that, look, I don't know
This
why
is
it
Mark
does
from the
that
QuickBooks team.
every
you have
time. But yeah, I mean, that was a new-ish feature that I didn't realize that does allow you to send the invoices, and then the customer is in control of setting up their recurring payment from the invoice itself. So once they set it up, then it's essentially the same as your sales receipt, but it's the two-parter, right? The invoice versus the payment. But we talk a lot about payments, so let's move on to some of the other things that we love, because there are other things to love about QuickBooks. The other thing that I love really, that a lot of accountants love, is the bank fees. Especially with QuickBooks Online. I think QuickBooks Online has the edge here because it's already in the online space, but desktop is making some strides to match what QuickBooks Online does. But the automatic updates, being able to have robust rules with splits in QuickBooks Online is an advantage. And then there's also shallow end of the pool with regards to simple receipt capturing and forwarding those documents so that they're attached inside of your QuickBooks. And then also you can, if it doesn't automatically connect, you can go to the bank and download the transactions and upload them. Michelle, what are your thoughts about bank fees?
Love them. And not only, you're talking here about the automatic updates and all that, but don't overlook that last one there, the file upload. Because if you've got clients, it's tax time, here we're in the middle of tax season, clients that have done nothing all year long, and they come to you, you can go out to the bank website, download a year's worth of activity or 18 months or however many, and you could go out and set up those rules, and it applies to all, 12 or 18 months. So you can process a year plus of activity in a fraction of the time. So, this is where that, the value pricing or practical pricing comes into play. Anyway, I absolutely love it. I mean, it's game changer, and it's really changing the way we operate, and it's changing our monthly workflow. So love it, love it, love it. Lots of love around the whole bank feed area.
Yeah, it's definitely, with what you can automate in the bank feeds, that's kind of changing the the picture when it comes to what's your scope of services. Like, you can set up some of these things where it's almost like pre-done for you, and then you're just kind of managing those things as they come in, rather than acknowledging each and every transaction as it comes in into the bank feed. And it's going to do it again. There we go. Okay. All right. This is what I was talking about a little earlier. Some of the things that I love about QBO is the infrastructure, right? There's nothing to download. There's nothing to install. There's nothing to store. There's nothing to back up. There's nothing to configure when it comes to multi-user, right? You just invite someone, they log in, or they accept the invitation, they're in, right? There's no switching to multi-user mode, switching to single user mode to do certain tasks. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours I've wasted trying to figure out who's still logged into the desktop file, and trying to kick them out, and they left it on while they went to lunch or something like that. So, those are the advantages of the cat in this case, that it doesn't stop you from doing these things, because you have to set up a network if you're in a multi-user environment, or put it in a cloud hosting and those types of things. So there's taking that getting started piece. I mean, you really just accept your invitation, you log in, you're there, right? You're inside of your QuickBooks. And I think that's part of the allure of, cloud software, right? Software in the cloud. And of course, Macintosh is more prevalent, right? And if you have a system where you've got mixed of Windows and Mac computers, QBO is agnostic to that. It's not, you don't need a QuickBooks for Mac and a QuickBooks for desktop or PC. What are your thoughts about the infrastructure?
Oh my gosh, this is huge. I mean, the whole not sending files back and forth, and accountant's copy, and the client canceling the restrictions, the ability to access it from any device and anywhere, and multi-user. I mean, this was one of the huge changes, I think, for me, between desktop and online. So this to me, I love more than payment. So
Wow.
for me, yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. It's maybe equal. I don't know, but this is just really, really huge because just so much time was wasted sending things back and forth. Plus the fact that you don't need an IT, person or IT department or the whole networking aspect, and not only that, but when you had a network in your office, Dan, you were in tech support, if you will, or the customer care. How many calls did you get about data corrupted files because of a network? That corrupted so many desktop files because it was on a network. So this is big. I love it. Enough said.
Yeah, that's one of the things to point out there too that I didn't put in a bullet is the yes, QBO has its quirks, right? And sometimes there are transactions that get damaged, and you have to delete and re-enter them. But the amount of calls that I've taken over the years that had to deal with corrupted data files with QuickBooks Desktop is large. I mean, I've got my other computer up here working on one such file just right now, and they're dealing with a large file that the bigger they are, the harder they fall is the adage. With QuickBooks Online, it's redundantly backed up, meaning that when you save a transaction, it's saved in multiple clouds, in the ether or wherever it's actually stored. So that transaction is not just saved, in location A, it's also in location B. So if there is a discrepancy or a lag, it just flips over to the active server, and your file, your data's there. What it doesn't do, and I wish it would, is an offline mode, right? Like if you actually had the ability to work in QuickBooks Online in an offline fashion, I think that would be awesome, right?
Yeah.
When you don't have an internet connection, because that's the Achilles heel of QuickBooks Online. If you don't have an active online connection, you're out. You're done. You can't get into QuickBooks.
But
you're holding up your phone.
So many of us have a hotspot. Like, I've got Verizon. I have unlimited data. It includes a hotspot. So if something happens and I don't have the internet, I turn on my hotspot and now I have internet. So, but I do see your point. If I'm on an airplane and I want to get some work done, although now even, a lot of them, I think I've heard Delta is starting to include internet on the flights, but it is a valid point, but it's getting less and less situations where you don't have internet. So
yeah. Especially, with Starlink and satellite and, different infrastructure, things like that. But that is one point. Like Square has an offline mode, right? Like that you go to a farmer's market, everybody's got Square. They don't have QuickBooks Payments. And I actually worked with a guy who was at a farmer's market, and we tested it out, and it turns out Square was, faster at charging customers and those types of things. So he opted to go with Square, and it has an offline mode that if there is an interruption to the internet, they can charge the card, but it waits until sees that it has data, and then it charges it later. So if they get to that point, I think that will be a huge win for QuickBooks Online.
Right.
Oh, well, and honorable mention. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the other thing, like I know when I'm at Chiefs games, the internet doesn't work because you got 70, 80,000 people trying to use the internet. So
that's true. Do you actually work on clients' files in the 40-yard line?
No, it's all about posting. It's all about the social there. But, hey. Anyway, sorry.
So I want to talk some of the things that I really love about QuickBooks Desktop is that in the accountant version is the client data review. There's tons of accountant only tools, which are still available if you have the QuickBooks ProAdvisor desktop add-on. You can log into your client's Pro or Premier and still have access to some of these tools. But the working trial balance, this is huge when you are just trying to make an adjustment entry and move on, right? Like if you just or if you want to see what your client's been up to since you last talked to them, these take a lot of the guesswork and the police work out of figuring out who did what. Some of these tools exist in QuickBooks Online as well, to reclassify transactions, but cleaning up undeposited funds, fixing and finding sales tax payments. Those are some of the features of the client data review tools that accountants just make it a lot easier for cleanup. But you have to send the file back and forth, and and then we go back to the previous slide of the anywhere access type of thing. And we're not going to listen to that. Okay.
Welcome everybody.
But I did put links to our prior webinars where we talk about that. The best way we can cram in 4 hours worth of content into 1 power hour. Another thing that I really love is about desktop is the QB Tool Hub. Before, they used to have all of these hodgepodge different tools when it came to challenges with regards to the desktop file. Like if you needed the file doctor or the network nurse or there was all sorts of healthcare analogies that they had, but password resets, installation problems. It's all just now in one tool that you can download. You can have that installed on your client or your local machine, and then just run that tool, and then choose the option that you need, and then it'll run its utility. All right, your area, the QuickBooks Online accountant features. You're sharing your love here.
Yeah, so you got CDR, the client data review, in desktop. Well, in QuickBooks Online, we have QBOA, QuickBooks Online Accountant, where we have our client dashboard. At a glance, you can see all your clients, and you can kind of see what's going on with them, which I love, because at a glance, you can get an idea like how many downloaded transactions are there, kind of what's the status of them, and you can go in and out of clients right there from it. And I love the client switcher. It is so much faster to go in and out of a client in QBO than it is opening and closing desktop clients. So that's kind of nice. You've got your team, and that's one of the things that's nice, is all of your team members can access the clients from QBO. There's no need for sharing those usernames and passwords. Everybody can have their own. It's all included. So none of that. Your ProAdvisor portal is right there within QBOA, where you can access the training and your certifications and everything right there. Now you can actually see who has achieved their certifications and stuff on your team. You can see what their status is. So that's kind of helpful. There's that work feature where you can do some practice management and assign tasks. So like I could have, Dan assign some tasks. And so if Dan calls and says, hey, I'm taking vacation, I could see what his tasks are and assign those to somebody else on the team. So you've got work and tasks. So check those things out if you haven't done that before. With QBOA, we get assigned your books, which is a QBO Advanced subscription for keeping track of your own firm's books and everything. And Dan, you can help me with this. I'm pretty sure it's still the case, but I haven't double checked lately, where we got a payroll subscription for our own firm. And
yeah,
so
and it's the elite. It's the elite payroll.
Yeah.
So it's the top of the line, with, where they guarantee the, the paying of liabilities and whatnot, as well as, fees that would normally for other people, if you have employees in multiple states, because gosh, you're a multi, you're a virtual bookkeeping firm now. You could feasibly have employees in multiple states, but normally you have to pay an extra per state fee. That's included with the elite payroll.
Yeah. So if you're a ProAdvisor and you're doing your own payroll, why? I mean, so Intuit gives us QBO Advanced in your books, and Intuit gives us our payroll subscription. So, I mean, I love that. But then we also have accounting tools like that client data review. And we've got the undo the bank rec. So we can go out there and undo bank recs when the client messes up. And in desktop, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, because they may have changed it. I'm not up on all the latest improvements in desktop. But in desktop, we used to have to undo 1 month at a time.
Yeah.
So if the client
you still do.
Okay. So if they messed up the bank recs and I had to go back 6 months, I had to undo each one at a time. In QuickBooks Online, I can go and undo 6 months all at one time to reconcile and fix those. So I love undo the bank rec. Again, these are accountants only tools. Clients can't do that. We also have the reclassify transactions, just like they did in desktop, where we can also reclassify the classes and the locations. So powerful tool that we love. Now, one of the limitations with reclassify transactions is you can't change the source account. So let's say, we talked about the bank feed and we talked about, downloading a year's worth of transactions. But let's say, your bank doesn't allow you to download all that history. So you got a PDF of the bank statement. So I can take Money Thumb, let's say, there's others out there. You could take a tool like Money Thumb and convert it to a file that I can import. Let's say I'm really tired because I was partying and celebrating that Chiefs win too late. So I imported all of these bank transactions into the credit card account instead of the checking account. Reclassified transactions won't allow me to change the source account. So I can't change it from a checking account to a credit card account or vice versa. But in just a minute, we're going to talk about Spreadsheet Sync with QBO Advanced, and it will allow you to change the source account, whereas reclassified transactions does not allow you to change source accounts, only your target account. So anyway, there is a tool in Spreadsheet Sync that allows you to do that. Anyhow, so reclassified transactions, awesome. Books Review, Dia, that's been out, what, a year, 2 years now? How long has Books Review been around?
Yeah, it's been, I remember they announced it at the QB Connect in 2019. And then it eventually, made its way, in the years after that.
Okay. So I love Books Review. It's giving us some of the tools similar to Client Data Review, where it has several tools in it. It allows you to review the client's data and do some cleanup and stuff. So it allows you, for example, to look for transactions without a payee. You can look for undeposited funds. You can look for a number of different things. Things that are assigned to things unclassified. Oh, what is it where they don't assign an account? Expenses, income, and assets. Uncategorized.
Uncategorized, yes.
Uncategorized. So you can look and identify those and clean those up. So Books Review allows you to identify those. And then one of the things in Books Review, and I love this, let's say I have, 5 checks or however many, 5 transactions without a payee name. I can select all of those and hit client request. And I select these transactions without a payee, hit client request, and then it's going to send this to the client that says, hey, I need details about all of these transactions. They don't have a payee name. And it will send that to the client. It'll send them the details of those transactions. I can give them a due date if I wanted to attach something to that. So I can send client requests from QBO. It will send it to the client. They can see it. So on their left nav bar down at the bottom, it'll see like accountant, like my accountant, and they can see it down there. They can choose to get an email notice or a text notification, so they can get this client request, and then they can reply as well. I love that it's all right there within QBO and QBOA. You don't have to go over to your email or go over to Slack or go to Lisio or go somewhere else. It's all right there within QBOA and QBO. It's all contained. So I love that, where when you have a question about something, boom, you can just send it to the client right from within. It's all self-contained. Again, saving us time. And it's a great tool. So I love it. We also have the Prep for Taxes tool, which allows you to go through and do groupings. So for example, if you want to group and roll up all the checking accounts, the savings accounts, the undeposited funds, and roll all those up as cash and cash equivalents for prepping the tax, for doing the tax returns and stuff. So you could do groupings and all those things to help you get the taxes ready. And you assign things to a tax line. And then if you're using ProConnect Tax Online, it'll send the numbers from QBO directly into PTO, ProConnect Tax Online. If you're using like Lacert or Pro Series, you could export it and import it into other tax packages or something. So, I mean, they have all of these wonderful tools from QBO. And I think it's a step beyond, because of the online connectivity, like with the client request, you get that additional step beyond what you can do with desktop client data review. So I think that makes it a little notch above client data review. So I think this is just awesome. I love all this.
No,
go ahead.
Cindy was talking about the client requests are supposed to allow the clients to access those docs too, but it doesn't seem to be the case. And the links seem to expire. You heard about that in your client requests? Where you're sending the request to someone and they can't see the documents in your travels?
I have not heard about that. Yeah, like if you send a client request and you attach the document, if they don't see the document in the client request, that's kind of weird. They could go look under the documents, like under banking. You know how you see there's receipts and documents and stuff. They could go look in there, but they could also go look under the accountant, and documents are in there as well. So I would have them go look in the documents. I would have to, she probably needs contact support, because it should be with that client request. I've not heard of that before. So I'm not sure.
There's probably more to it than what we're thinking here, but we certainly might want to dig a little deeper into that. But yeah, I mean, lots of new tools that have just in the last couple years have come into the QuickBooks Online Accountant. Even like if you're in the books review and you change it to setup, you can do some of those trial balance adjustments, like we were talking about in desktop now, which I saw that as a win, right? You can do those things. It's not perfect. It creates individual journal entries instead of one big one, but it's still a way that you can just, I can force this to match what last year's tax return was. And also the prep for taxes that you mentioned there. I mean, if you're doing taxes and bookkeeping, and you're preparing the taxes, the prep for taxes is just phenomenal, because you can just literally make, almost make the tax return and map it, make your adjustments in QBO, and then it just feeds over into the return itself, and you're literally almost done with that tax return.
Yeah. Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm going to make this snappy. Batch transactions, you can batch create transactions, like batch create invoices. You can batch edit, batch delete. You can also batch import transactions with QBO Advanced. So these are all things with Advanced. Spreadsheet sync is what I mentioned earlier. You have the ability to, with Spreadsheet sync, you can create reports with a live link to QuickBooks. So for example, I could even create combined reports if I wanted to. I'm not saying consolidated reports, they're combined.
Yeah.
For those accounting purists, there is a difference between combined and consolidated. combined multi-company reporting. So you can do reporting here with a live link to the data, so it will refresh for you. You could do charts and graphs and analysis. But what I really love is it's also a tool to the data in QuickBooks. You can do data manipulation. Like I mentioned, when you had the source account that was wrong, let's say on your purchases, I could change the source account for 50 or 100 transactions that I imported to the checking account, but it should have been the credit card account. I can change that in that file using Spreadsheet Sync and then have it post and update QuickBooks and fix that. I could change things in the chart of accounts or in the customers or in the vendors list. So you can do data manipulation and edit the transactions or some of the lists. You can change and edit almost any of the data in QuickBooks with Spreadsheet Sync. So it's amazing. Then also you have the custom fields in QBO, very powerful. Custom report builder, also really, really powerful. What you can do, you can pull reports from different things. So it's a really powerful tool. Workflows and tasks, custom user roles. You can create your own user roles out there. The expense management, where you can have employees or subcontractors and vendors submitting their expenses for reimbursement and stuff. So with QBO Advanced, I want to encourage you guys to March VCon, March 21st and 22nd. I'll be doing a deep dive and demoing these things, or at QB training events. This stuff, as well as the other stuff that I just talked about on the previous slide, these things are covered at qbtrainingevents.com. So go check out the webinars out there because it's covered in detail in those webinars. So go check that stuff out.
And back to desktop, it's not like cats versus dogs here, but we we do want to make sure that we share the love, right? There are some things in accountant desktop that are included. The fixed asset manager, SAM, I should have spelled it out, to help you depreciate, depreciation calculator. There's a built-in financial statement writer that's built in there. It's an Excel add-on to help you create those management reports like you can in QBO, but a little bit more robust. You can combine reports. We're not consolidating reports, but we're combining reports in Excel in Enterprise. And then there's an accountant only with no usage limits, like in QBO, where you have only so many accounts that you could use, or so many classes or anything like that, unless you're using QBO Advanced to unleash those, unlock those limitations. But Enterprise itself doesn't have any list limitations, even with customers, vendors, and items. There's a practical limit, right, where it might start to slow down, or reports may take a little longer to run, but there's no physical limitation. And then plus you have the accountant's copy, right? You show a little love for the accountant's copy process. I'm sure people have either loved it or hated it because they've been burnt by it at least once when it comes to the accountant copy. But it does allow you and your client to work asynchronously in the same company file. So that is a nice option. I would caution, right, to as far as the changes and the things that you're doing in there, ideally you'd want to just do journal entries, because if something were to horribly go wrong and you can't import your changes, you can always send those journal entries to QuickBooks, because that is a neat feature as well. You can export your journal entries from desktop, and they can just bring them in without having to do an accountant's copy. All right, so our last poll. Look at that, we timed it right with our poll today. And oh man, I've been sharing the last poll for forever. Sorry about that. But I guess you can move that away. Did you learn something new? Michelle, did you see any chats or questions that you want to talk about while we're letting the folks answer?
I can't remember, Dan. Rewind, since it's with QBO Advanced now, it's not available at apps.com. What are the names of the other ones? I can't remember. The backup app.
Well, It's the other way around. So ChronoBooks
Oh,
is the
thank you.
backup
Okay.
service that's in QuickBooks Online Advanced.
Thank
But
you.
you
Okay.
cannot get it for any other version. But Rewind
Okay.
is
That's what it was.
you
Okay.
can have that for your individual clients on all versions of QuickBooks, as well as on Advanced if you want. The advantage, I mean, the thing that I like about Rewind is that it does back up transactions individually. So if you delete a transaction, or if your client deleted a transaction and you just want to restore that one transaction, you certainly can with Rewind. You can't do that with ChronoBooks. You have to go back to a specific moment in time, which would be everything that happened between now and that last backup. But having that option at all is a great option because if something goes horribly wrong today and you just want to go back like it was yesterday, you can do that with ChronoBooks or with the Rewind. So it looks like we did. Almost 90% of people learned something new today. Appreciate, and besides the fact that the Chiefs won. Congratulations to Super Bowl champion Chiefs over the Eagles.
Oh my gosh, yes. What to say there, Dan? I love it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us again on another QB Power Hour. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to share some love with us and sharing some love with QuickBooks. And hope you can join us next time. Michelle, any closing thoughts?
No, I just want to thank you, Dan, for all that you do. Share some love with Dan, and thank you, Intuit, for all you do for us, because we do appreciate all the things that they do for us as accounting professionals, giving us these great tools that help make our life easier. So a little love to Intuit, love to Dan. Thank you for all you do for Power Hour. And tell Teresa hi, and thank you guys as you move on to your next stop in your RV adventures.
Right. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Power Hour.